Peterson, and this is my son Lincoln.
Hi.
We're going to talk about the Opener of the Way faction. That's Yogg-Sothoth. First, I'm going to discuss the various spellbooks and requirements and creatures and abilities of this faction.
And I'm going to discuss the strategies used.
Opener of the Way is a very unusual faction. You start right off with the decision. Every other faction has their initial gate and units start in some special place on the map. Cthulhu starts in the South Pacific. Windwalker starts in the Arctic Ocean. But Yogg-Sothoth, or Opener of the Way, has a choice. He must pick where to place his gate. It can be anywhere on the map that another player is not already in. So he can set up his gate in Antarctica or Australia or Scandinavia, anywhere he pleases. Just puts the gate down there along with the cultists, and that's his starting location. So that's the first thing that makes him quite unusual. Now, like every other faction, he has 5 kinds of units. There's the ubiquitous cultist that everyone shares. Then next up we have the mutants. These cost 2 power and have a combat of 1. The Yogg-Sothoth doesn't have a monster that costs only 1. This is one of his drawbacks as a faction. He makes up for it in other ways though. So mutants cost 2, combat 1. He then has the abominations, which cost 3 and have a combat of 2. And finally, the mighty spawn of Yogg-Sothoth. These cost 4. They're the most expensive monster in the game, but they have a combat of 3. And of course we have Yogg-Sothoth himself. To summon Yogg-Sothoth, you have to have a spawn of Yogg-Sothoth anywhere on the map. You spend 6 power and replace the spawn with Yogg-Sothoth. So in a sense, Yogg-Sothoth costs a total of 10 power because you got to pay 4 for your spawn, then 1 for Yogg-Sothoth. But you can pay it on the installment plan. You don't have to do it all in the same turn. His combat ability is equal to twice the number of other Great Old Ones, enemy Great Old Ones on the map. So if you're playing a game against Cthulhu, Crawling Chaos, and Black Goat, each of them have their Great Old One out, he'll roll 6 dice. So he doesn't roll a ton of dice compared to other Great Old Ones, but he rolls enough for his needs, and he has some special bonuses that make that number of dice even better. Finally, his special ability, the key and the gate associated with Yogg-Sothoth, is that he is a gate. This means he produces 2 power during Gather Power, he can summon monsters at him, he gives you an extra point during the Doom phase and during the Ritual of Annihilation, plus he's a Great Old One, so he also gives you an Elder Sign at that time. So this is an extremely useful and flexible ability. The unique ability that Opener of the Way has, as a faction, is quite unusual. His ability is that any of his creatures that cost 3 or more, so in the base faction this would be Abominations, Spawn of Yogg-Sothoth, and Yogg-Sothoth himself, are allowed to do the Beyond one. Let's say we have a gate here with, Cthulhu cultists on it, and here's a Spawn of Yogg-Sothoth. To use the Beyond one, you spend 1 power and you move the Spawn of Yogg-Sothoth, or whatever other monster you're using, to any spot on the game that doesn't have a gate. So you can pick up that gate and move it to North America, to North Atlantic, or Antarctica, or across the world to Arabia, anywhere there's not a gate. The gate moves with him along with the unit that's controlling it. It doesn't even matter if he has a Great Old One. Here's Cthulhu helping him out, and the spawn just picks it up and slides it away to Arabia. Nothing Cthulhu can do about it. That's the Beyond one. It moves gates around the map. It generally tends to be more useful early in the game when there's fewer gates on the map, less useful later on, but you can almost always find somewhere that it would be good. His spellbooks. Here's how you earn Yogg-Sothoth spellbooks. He gets a spellbook when there's 9 gates on the map. Typically this happens sometime late in the first turn, early in the second turn. Happens every game, you just have to kind of wait for it to happen. So often the Yogg-Sothoth player will be sitting there counting the gates until the great moment. Next there is the spellbook that he gets when there's 12 gates on the map. This usually happens near the end of the second turn, sometimes early in the third. Occasionally in a very slow advancing game it might be in the 4th, but I don't think I've seen that happen more than once. So 12 gates on the map gives another spellbook. These are more like time-based spellbooks. He can't do that much to affect it, but don't forget, Yogg-Sothoth is a gate. He counts towards the 9 or the 12 gates. Okay, next, he gets a spellbook when he has a unit in an area containing an enemy-controlled gate. So for example, if this was in the game, that would be one of the 2 areas he'd need. If he had units in another area with an enemy-controlled gate, then he'd get that spellbook. He has some abilities that make it quite easy for him to get that. That should be one of the early ones he sort of aims for. Okay, then he has a very fun spellbook, which is lose one of your own units in battle. This is fun because you simply send a unit into combat somewhere, and if you win and inflict damage, that's awesome, and if you get killed, that's also great, because no matter what happens, it's win-win for you. In fact, you might hurt some of the guys and get killed. Then, you kill the guys and you get a spellbook. So it's pretty fun to watch for that. And of course, it always happens in Cthulhu where someone gets killed, so that's an inevitable spellbook. Maybe his most difficult spellbook to get is your Great Old One must be in the same area. Maybe the most difficult spellbook for him to get is you must have your Great Old One in the same area with an enemy Great Old One. Obviously, this is risky for both parties. It's safer if you can do it with a comparatively weak Great Old One, such as the King in Yellow, but sometimes you just have to take the bull by the horns and go where the trouble is. And of course, the final spellbook is the same as everyone has, which is when you awaken your Great Old One, in his case, Yog-Sothoth. That's the 6 ways of getting the spellbooks. Yog-Sothoth does not get their spellbooks really early in the game. There's a bunch that some they have to wait for a while, but they have a certain inevitability about them that they will eventually come to you. Let's talk about the tools Yog-Sothoth or Opener of the Way has in order to inflict his will upon the world. His spellbooks. One of his most interesting spellbooks is They Break Through. This spellbook means you don't have to control the gate at which you summon a monster. You don't even have to have units there. So for example, this gate can be sitting here quietly in the South Atlantic minding its own business, and you spend 2 power and summon a mutant there. Or you spend 4 power and summon a spawning Yog-Sothoth. You don't even have to, it can even be an abandoned gate. Here's an empty gate with no one on it. You can summon a monster, then later on, summon a cultist, recruit a cultist to take over the gate. So They Break Through is obviously a highly valuable spellbook. Then we have the Million Favored Ones. The Million Favored Ones enables your units to promote after combat. So, any of you guys that survives the combat in the area, cultists can be promoted into a mutant. A mutant can promote into an abomination promotes to a spawn of Yog-Sothoth, and a spawn of Yog-Sothoth promotes by breaking apart into as many mutants as you have in your unit pool. So usually you don't want to do it if you only have 1 or 2 mutants, but 3 or 4 mutants, it's a bargain. So, for example, here's an example of what you can do. Here's a cultist, and here's Yog-Sothoth has 2 cultists of his own there. So Yog-Sothoth declares combat. His cultists roll 0 dice. Cthulhu's cultists roll 0 dice. These cultists then promote to mutants. They fight again. They pain him. He moves away. Each of them promote to an abomination, and you can keep racking your way back up by your bootstrap until you get stronger and stronger. And you can do it in combination. For example, if you had a cultist, a mutant, and an abomination all fight in a unit, the cultist could turn into a mutant, the mutant could turn into an abomination, and the abomination can promote into a spawn of Yog-Sothoth. So this is a potentially very dangerous ability. We then have Channel Power, which makes you more effective in combat. After you roll your combat dice, but before damage is inflicted, you may spend 1 power during the battle to immediately re-roll all of your dice that missed. In other words, if they rolled a 1, 2, or 3, didn't get a pain or a kill. In effect, this doubles your total dice rolled in a way, because you get, just the good, well, maybe not quite doubling it, but it gives you a lot more hits. So, for example, I mentioned Yog-Sothoth doesn't roll that many dice, only rolls 6 or 8 dice. Well, he rolls 6 or 8 dice, gets 3 or 4 hits, then he re-rolls the rest of them again for 1 power, and he can significantly upgrade the damage he does at a cost. We have the Dread Curse of Azathoth. This is a attack spell. Basically, it's my players call it the Death from Above spell. For this spellbook, you select an area, then you roll 1 combat die in the area for each abomination and or spawn of Yog-Sothoth that you have. So for example, if you have 2 spawns and 1 abomination, you'd roll 3 dice. Here's an area. I'd roll my 3 dice, and after you roll the dice, you pick how the damage is divided up. So say that I got a really lucky roll, I got 1 kill and 2 pains. I could say I'm applying the kill to yellow and the 2 pains to green. And then Cthulhu has to retreat out of the area, and he just dies. Now, the defender gets to pick how it's divided up. So if Cthulhu's in the area, he doesn't have to accept a kill on Cthulhu, he can pick someone else. Of course, Cthulhu's alone, you might be able to kill him. Now, it's not a battle, no combat abilities apply. So Black Goat can't necrophagy his ghouls in there. Star spawns can't regenerate from the damage, they just have to take the hits. Also, if they're pained, you pick where they go. So you can retreat them to wherever is most convenient for you. And there's no limitation. There's not an enemy because it was the curse of the gods or something that hit him, so he just retreats anywhere. Finally, his two signature abilities are Dragon Ascending and Dragon Descending. These are very unique spellbooks. What happens with these is that each of these spellbooks can only be used once in the entire game. When they're used, you put them face down to show you can never use them again. Dragon Descending lets you once during the game, during the Doom phase, perform your Ritual of Annihilation for free. It costs 0 power. Flip it face down, you do the ritual, it works just like a regular ritual in every way except it doesn't cost you anything. It replaces your normal ritual. It effectively saves you 7 or 8 power right there in the, the middle of the game when you might need it. Then we have Dragon Ascending. Once during the game, at any time, it doesn't have to be during the action phase, you can do it during the gather power phase or any time. You set your power to be equal to the current power of any enemy faction you want. Flip it down, you set your power and put it up charts to wherever it needs to be. So for example, maybe you did a ritual, then you're the first player, so you summon Yogg-Sothoth, that costs 6 more points. You're down 12 points from your start, you only have 2 or 3 left. So you look over to your left, there's a player with 13 points. You play this spellbook, go from 2 or 3 back up to 13. You're ready to start your next action round with your full point. And this is a potential game changer, as you may well guess. So those are the tools Yogg-Sothoth has to conquer the world or destroy it. And now we're going to have Lincoln tell you some potential strategies that he likes to use when he plays Open Earth Way.
Hello, I'm Lincoln Peterson, and I'm going to talk about strategies. So, the first strategy we talk about is where you place your starting gate and cultists, since you can place them anywhere on the map. There are 3 choices in my mind of what you can do. You can place it super aggressively, like if you're playing with Yellow Sign and Black Goat and Crawling Chaos. You can place it in Arabia and be right next to everyone and in the midst of all the action. The other choices are, one of them is to place your gate next to just one of them, and that's still kind of aggressive, but it's less so and more defensive, and you can deal with problems as they arise. The other one is to place it somewhere where no one can access you, like Australia or North America is usually where I put it when I want to be defensive and just boom and get a lot of gates and power and such. Okay. So, the first thing you do on your turn, on your first turn, you'll have your guys. Usually you want to build a gate like everybody else so that you can get more power. So you might want to build a gate and make a spawn is usually what I do to protect it. So that next turn you have more flexibility in your options. So you can actually either turn this into Yogg-Sothoth, or you can go and fight with him and maybe shatter him into a lot of things if you get a million favored ones. Or you could build 2 gates and then help you get your spellbook requirements faster. Or even just build 1 gate, then 2 mutants, or, those are basically what I would do the first turn. I would usually go with the spawn Yogg-Sothoth and an extra gate. And then later turns gives me more flexibility, and I would get spawn Yogg-Sothoth second turn, and then continue to build up my power base until I had a lot of gates and Yogg-Sothoth out and getting a lot of doom points and power. And then I would get more spawns and abominations and then dread curse people so they couldn't fight back against me. They would come into my area, then before they could battle, if they didn't have all 6 spellbooks, I would dread curse them, and it's a pretty horrible strategy that is very effective. But really, Yogg-Sothoth is kind of reactionary in what he does and things he can use to his advantage. So I like to get breakthrough. They break through first because you get to summon your mutants at other people's gates, controlled gates, and it helps you get another spellbook requirement, and it forces them to react to what you're doing. So you summon a mutant at their gate, they either have to build a deep one, or summon a deep one, or a star spawn or something to either counteract that, or they have to, let their cultists be captured, which is a really bad option. Alright, The next thing you can do is Million Favored Ones. This actually works very well with They Break Through. Instead of summoning a mere mutant, you could summon a spawn. In, say, Europe, where usually Yellow has all of their cultists just hanging out because they never move anywhere. So you summon there, then you fight, and then you can shatter into your mutants. And then you can fight some more and shatter into abomination or grow into abominations. And so on. And this is really cost effective in getting all your big units out really fast. Alright, let's see. Next. So channel power, that's pretty straightforward. You want to use it when you really needed to kill somebody or something. Like you're fighting Cthulhu and Yogg-Sothoth is there and you got almost enough kills to kill all of their dudes, but not enough. So you use channel power.
Mission Hunter not last night.
Last night I only rolled 3 dice and I was fighting, I was fighting Ithaca and Rantagoth and a cultist, I think, and I rolled nothing, and then I channel powered and I got 3 kills.
Whoa.
So, you know, pretty good. Let's see.
He killed Ithaca and Rantagoth.
No, with Rantagoth.
Well,
Rantagoth canceled it.
killed.
Right. Sure, but still. Nice.
No, it was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Dread Curse. Dread Curse, you usually want to use that in areas where you don't actually want to go in and fight because your monsters are super expensive to replace. So if you have a Yogg-Sothoth in Europe, per se, and then the King in Yellow walks in with all of his undead buddies, or I guess that's a bad example. You don't want to do it then. You want to do it so.
Cthulhu shows up.
Yeah, Cthulhu shows. So when you want to do Dread Curse is when the enemy Great Old Ones are alone and don't have any meat shields with them, and then you Dread Curse them, and since it can hit even Great Old Ones and kill them, it's really good at destroying those, and they're quite expensive to replace, as everyone knows.
It's also good for capturing small gates.
Yes, so it's really good against blue as well because, or other players that like to have only one cultist and a gate somewhere, then you can just Dread Curse that and then kill them or pain them away, and then you summon a mutant there at the gate, and then you recruit a cultist or whatnot. Let's see. Dragon Ascending. Usually when I would use it is, let's say I had 14 power from last turn. I had Yogg-Sothoth out and a few other gates, 3 other gates. So that gives me about 14 power. So I had Ritual that would cost 6 or 7, 8, I guess, depending on how far you are into the game. So it costs you 6 power to do it, so you're down to 8. And then you want to summon a spawn, because you're going first. And that gets you down to another 4. So now you're at 4 power. And then you immediately use it to go back up to 12 that Nyarlathotep had, or 13 that Ithaca had or something. Whoever has the most power you want to go back up to. And it's almost as if you got your spawn and your ritual for free.
Dragon Ascending.
Dragon Ascending. So those are the strategies of Yogg-Sothoth.
Excellent.